Hey, well, tonight I'm angry about our ignorance of the facts, and this was brought home to me by the furor that's just erupted in England over this tweet from a journalist I admire. Her name is Julia Hartley-Brewer, and she points out that the National Health Service in England shows only 377 people under the age of 60 dying of COVID-19 this year. These are people who are under 60 and have no pre-existing conditions. Only 377 people have died. And this seemed like a ridiculously low number, so I did some research on my own here in the US, and this is what I found. These are figures from the CDC, and these are figures as of December the 28th of this year. This is the graph that the CDC has produced, and I'll give you more details on it in a second to make it more easily understood. Here is the summary so that you can see exactly what the CDC has disclosed. And you can see on the left-hand side age groups, and number tells you how many people in each age group have died and what the percentage of deaths are. So what you can see is that, for example, people aged 0 to 4 years old, 61 people in total have died from COVID-19. In the group 40 to 49, 6,784 have died, which is 2.9%. I'm going to explain what these other figures mean so that you can get a sense of what I'm looking at. If you look at the third column, you can see that starting at the bottom, 32.8% of the fatalities were over 85. 27.2 were 75 to 84. Therefore, the combination of 27.2 and 32.8 is 60%. Similarly, if you add the 20.8% of deaths, 65 to 74, you get 80.8%. 50 to 64, you get 95.3%. 40 to 49, you get 98.2%. That means that of the deaths, 98.2% were 40 years old or older, and 32.8%, almost a third, were over 85. The number of deaths of people aged less than 40 totals 4,279. 4,279 people under the age of 40 have died of COVID-19 this entire year. We've shut down the entire economy just to protect the elderly, who I will concede do need to be protected, should be protected. But should the entire economy be shut down to protect this small group? They are a small group. Even though 77,000 people aged 85 or older have died, the fact is that people aged 85 or older are going to die. Most of them are going to die within a few, not several, but only a few years. Now, I will concede that if you have parents who are that age, obviously you're concerned about their health. And I'm not suggesting that we don't care about what happens to these elderly people. What I am suggesting is that the economy, which really is being run by people well under the age of 85, be allowed to continue to operate. For us to shut everything down just to protect the elderly and the sickly is crazy. It's evidently crazy. Even more crazy is the fact that we aren't even allowed to say that it's crazy anymore. These facts and figures are indisputable. In the UK, only 377 people under the age of 60 have died of COVID-19 without a comorbidity, and they've shut down the entire country, just as we have done here. There are some states where you still have free movement, but look at California, look at Pennsylvania, look at some of these other states where individual freedoms have been dramatically curtailed, and just to protect a small subset of the population that isn't even active in the economy. They may be consumers, but they generally are not employees. Our focus should be on protecting them. Our focus should be on maintaining their security, on making sure that COVID doesn't get to where they are. To believe that we can stop COVID-19 from spreading in the general population is crazy. It's literally crazy. The evidence seems to show that masks may indeed make things worse. Earlier in the year, I was one of those who belittled that idea. I couldn't believe that wearing a mask could be worse than not wearing a mask. It turns out that possibly rebreathing your own air can be less healthy than not wearing a mask, especially because it seems like it's impossible to avoid ultimately being exposed to this virus. We're not going to be able to avoid it, The elderly are the ones who are being killed by it, and who even knows if they are being killed by it? Maybe their deaths would happen in any case. If you die with COVID-19, that doesn't mean you died of COVID-19. The facts are the facts, and the facts are finally starting to come out. 377 people in the UK under the age of 60 without a comorbidity. 377 people. They've shut down the entire economy. Millions are out of work. Millions may never get their jobs back. Depression, suicide, these things are prevalent now. Nobody even knows how to count them. The situation is very similar here in the States. I'll take you back to the facts that we determined from the CDC release, and you can see that out of a total of 235,000 deaths as of 12/28, a third are over 85, and 98.2% are over 40. 95% are over 50. The vast majority of the population, the working people, the people out on the streets, the people day to day interacting with each other are the young. They're not the 85 plus. The 85 plus are safely ensconced in nursing homes, or at least they were safely ensconced until we allowed this disease to run rampant in their protected enclosures. It's obvious that what we need to do is protect the elderly and the sick, not to shut down the entire economy, which doesn't even seem to be having any effect. People wearing masks versus not wearing masks doesn't seem to have any effect on transmission rates or infection rates in a particular area. People being locked down or not locked down doesn't seem to have any effect. The only facts that we actually know is that the old, and by old I mean very old, and sickly are being consumed by this disease. It is a tragedy. A greater tragedy, though, is our response to this. We ignore the facts. We don't even acknowledge that people under the age of 40 have a negligible risk from this disease. Instead, we willy-nilly shut everything down, cause people to stay inside, cause all kinds of mental problems to develop untreated, physical conditions untreated. We have totally gone off the rails here. Nobody's even allowed to talk about the facts. This woman, Julia Hartley-Brewer in the UK, has received all kinds of defamation on Twitter for her announcement of a plain fact, that the country was shut down needlessly, just as it seems that ours has been, and countries around the world have been. What are we supposed to do when the facts seem to show that this decision was the wrong one? These are facts. These are facts from the CDC, and the fact is that only the very elderly seem to be afflicted by this disease to a marked statistical extent, and yet all of us are suffering. Isolating the vulnerable, protecting the weak, protecting the elderly, that is a responsible, serious reaction to this disease. Shutting everything down, forcing us to stay indoors, limiting our social exposure, forcing us to wear masks that may indeed make us more sick, telling us we can't even discuss whether masks make us sick or not. These are not the signs of a healthy or free society, and that apparently doesn't exist either in the US or in the UK. Educate yourself. Look at what the facts actually are. The CDC releases data. The CDC will tell you what the facts are, according to the CDC at least, and according to the CDC's facts, our lockdown, our reaction to this disease has been wildly overblown and completely counterproductive. Look at the data for yourself and make up your own mind. But please, look at the facts before you make up your mind. It's time to wake up.